to the left.
For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to Strat News Global and of course our sister channel Bharat Shakti. It's a big day in India. The annual budget, Union Finance budget has been presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in the Parliament, unusually on a Sunday where markets had to open also. But certainly the markets didn't react the way most people expected, because the market also didn't expect the kind of budget that has been unveiled by the finance minister. So to unpack all that, I have with me our in-house expert and specialist on finance, Anil Padmanabhan, Capital Calculus. You know him as someone who does a weekly program. So Anil, first of all, thank you for sparing time through your daily day-long kind of appearances on different channels. So and that's why we are doing this in the evening, because we thought let everybody understand, absorb what's happening in the budget. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Nitin, for having me.
But
before that, congratulations. Your people should watch your Bharat Shakti show, which aired 2 days earlier, and all that you said came spot on defense.
That's about the, I think what he is talking about. If you don't know, I had said on Friday that the capital expenditure, the capital outlay for the defense ministry will be upwards of 20% over the last time's budget estimates, which has come true. It's nearly 24% if you go with the capital outlay budget. And if you just look at the capital acquisition budget, it's about 22%. So anyway, thanks for that pointing out. I had forgotten about it because we're looking ahead. So looking ahead, let's hear what the finance minister said and actually encapsulated the philosophy and the spirit of the budget. Let's hear her first and then start our conversation.
First budget prepared in Kartavya Bhavan. We are inspired by three Kartavya. Our first Kartavya is to accelerate and sustain economic growth by enhancing productivity and competitiveness and building resilience to volatile global dynamics. Our second Kartavya is to fulfill aspirations of our people and build their capacity, making them strong partners in India's path to prosperity. Our third Kartavya, aligned with our vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, is to ensure that every family, community, region, and sector has access to resources, amenities, and opportunities for meaningful participation.
So she speaks about three pillars of this budget, and clearly this is not a budget which has been designed for instant gratification, if I may use that term, because it is looking at Viksit Bharat 2047, which is exactly 21 years from today, in February 2026. So your first thoughts, Anil, since you're analyzing since the morning where the budget is going. So let's hear that.
So Nitin, my thoughts are very similar to what you just stated, that part of the problem that there's a disconnect between the markets and the FM speech. I would blame partially the finance minister and her boss, the prime minister. The prime minister on his part talked and promised again and again of the Reforms Express. And in the public's perception, Reforms Express is all about structural reform, big ticket, the things which will shake up the country. And the finance minister on her part publicly stated that I'm going to overhaul the complete customs duty structure like I did with direct taxes. So give a hands-off approach, processes will be rejigged. Now, the speech did not dwell in detail on either the expectations in the public. So the disconnect happened there. But like you said, it's a budget for the long haul. And it's the budget with the first in the next 25 years. So it's a hugely important, the significance is lost on most people. And I think part of the reason is the narrative of the FM speech also failed to emphasize the fact sufficiently, that public understood that, listen, this is a budget with a difference. So it was a long haul budget. It was built on 3 pillars. The first pillar addresses all the uncertainty that surrounds India globally, and it's not going away. Trump is there for another 3 years. Even after Trump, uncertainty will persist. So that uncertainty is addressed in this budget by trying to develop the resilience by building your economic backbone. So if you contrast to the previous budgets, there were lots of big ticket action, like last year's budget and the direct tax rejig that the public loved. But the point is, all of them happened in a crisis.
Right.
So you needed that kind of flourish to respond adequately, or COVID-19, the subsequent Russia-Ukraine conflict. Today, mercifully, India is in a sweet spot.
Largest, the fastest growing, largest economy, as they say.
And benign inflation, less than 2%,
Right.
growth at 7%. So they've got a phrase for this called Goldilocks, which is neither too hot nor too cold, the perfect taste.
Right.
Now, given that backdrop, you don't need flourishes. So which means you need to go for the long haul. The finance minister and her boss both had time to look at a long-term strategy. So which is where the disconnect happened between the markets and the FM.
Absolutely. I think you bang on that. I think what has happened over the years, budget has always been linked to 2 or 3 emotional decisions, whether income tax has been reduced, whether there are some measures to bring down inflation or prices, and what is there in it for me is what every segment looks for. I think there was no such thing upfront there, but like you said, it's a long-term investment that they're doing in India's structural changes of Indian economy. And if I see this is also another aspect to this is also building, not building too many expectations. So I think the assumptions are also very conservative. If I'm not wrong,
Absolutely.
That is how they are.
Absolutely. Nitin, and the point is that you have to see this, in a context. The budget, I'm talking of maybe 15 years ago, the budget was the central part of this Indian economy.
Right.
Everything revolved around it. It set the trend for the entire year. But today, no longer. So if you look at it, the budget is just one building block now.
Right.
So in many ways, you have devalued the role of the budget, not in a deliberate way, but because you have now, realized that you cannot react once in a year to the economy.
Right.
The world has changed.
Right.
You need to be on a 24/7
Sure.
response. And going to your point about conservative, absolutely.
Mm.
All the estimates in this are conservative by nature. So my own gut is that implicitly the FM is anticipating uncertainty or prepared for uncertainty. So if it arises, there's enough firepower to respond to it with a fiscal stimulus or some other concession down the road. But at this point, they're very conservative.
And enough room for maneuver in case the back to the wall situation comes in again. But let's look at how the finances, the budget is financed. So if we look at how the rupee comes and rupee goes, the old trope really, but it's very useful to know the way it goes. So this is where I think the rupee comes from. Corporate tax 18%. Borrowings are 24%, income tax 21%. It could increase, I suppose, but that is where it is. And then GST also gets 15%. So overall, I think the tax reforms that you spoke about have contributed to this balanced kind of inputs coming into the finance budget.
Yes and no, because very early. So the GST rejig, which was a massive rejig,
Right.
Took place in October. So there was a sugar rush when the entire Indian consumer economy went out and shopped,
Right.
and that resulted in a spurt in your collections. Now things are stabilizing. On the direct tax side, the income tax, if you notice, has a larger share
Yes.
than the the corporation tax.
Yes.
Now, I just written about this
This morning, yeah.
a
week ago,
week
I think.
ago.
A week ago. And
Exactly.
today's was, of course, Nirmala Sitharaman's
Profile. Yeah, in
profile, 9 years.
Exactly. Thank you for reminding me. That's actually a record which should be observed. I mean, recorded by us,
Right.
at least in our program, because someone like her, just like Shaktikanta Das, was bullied when he took over as RBI governor, as he's not fit for the job. Here was a person whom everybody wrote off on day one.
9 years ago.
And imagine, Nitin, she took charge in 2019, 2020 COVID hit. So you had just presented your second budget on 1st Feb, and hell broke loose a few weeks later. Your Indian economy contracted by 23.9% in the Q1 of 2021.
Right.
You had, I mean, the so-called inexperienced finance minister actually bent her back and delivered India from a crisis mode.
Sure.
India survived and then thrived.
Correct.
So, and for her to present 9 budgets, I think salute.
No, sir, of course, it's a record and something that one must had to take note. That's why I reminded you. So going back to your previous column on Substack about corporation tax being less than income tax.
No, more than that, Nitin, the direct tax, I actually looked at 10 years data of salaried income tax, not income tax. So I took it deliberately because, income, you kind of all kinds of manipulation.
Yes.
We don't even know what's going on there. Right. But salaried, we are all salaried people. Right. There are checks, TDS, deductions happen. So we are on the tax radar.
Correct.
I think it's a good kind of good demography to operate with.
Yeah.
So I just looked at the data between 2014-15 and 23-24.
Okay.
That's the latest available.
Right.
I was simply blown away. The middle tax bracket of 10 to 15 lakh and 15 to 20 lakh grew from some 10 lakh tax filers to 70 odd lakh in just 9 years. So you're talking about 600 to 700% growth. Fine, inflation, etc., and all will be there. But the larger point is there is a visible trading up.
Right.
So that signal is I think very important, which most people have ignored, which is what is driving the premiumization which we see.
Yes.
That today people
honest
want branded goods.
Yes.
People want branded goods. So
consumption is increasing.
And from the middle they are not the top end.
Right.
That is a different 1%. They will always be there.
Yes.
But we are talking of a new segment.
Expanding middle segment. Yeah.
The middle class, salaried, rich. So look back at, you and I can look back.
Yes.
When you were in school at that time, the first time the middle class dreamt was when Bajaj launched Hamara Bajaj.
Absolutely.
In the 70s.
Correct.
So mobility came to a middle class home.
Yes.
Then we waited for 10 years for Maruti 800 to launch.
Correct.
A small car that taught us how to drive.
Yes.
Okay. Then again we waited for so many years.
Yes.
It's only in the last decade and a half that all of us have traded up.
Right. Absolutely.
And we are that metric which I'm telling you about,
True.
10 to 25 lakh, which has grown.
Sure.
So the Indian economy has fundamentally altered. To go back to the point about the foundations of this budget recognizes that. So how do I build from a situation today to aspirational, India at 2047 as a developed economy? Because India's problems today are not what it was even 5 years ago.
Yes.
Abject poverty, in 10 years, you have lifted 50 crore people out of abject poverty. 40 crore people out of abject poverty. So today your poverty level is less than 5%.
Right.
It was almost 50% at the turn of the millennium.
So this is a staging ground, a launch pad in a way.
Perfect.
Right? So that is how. So let's look at where does the rupee go. It comes in like this, but the rupee goes also, obviously, there's a lot of expenditure. And from the figures that are available, look at it. I think state share is 22%, defense is 11%, finance commission and centrally sponsored schemes and central sector schemes. I think both state and central sector, there's enough money given there. But of course, interest payment has also come down, I thought. It used to be about 27% at one point in time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. Because fiscal consolidation, this is the virtue of that. So if you simple, if you have lower debt burden, you have a lower interest burden. What holds for us as individuals holds for the country too.
Also. Yeah.
So that's one of the virtues of this finance minister, that she has actually managed to lower the debt burden.
Absolutely. And when we look at, where's the next part of this entire thing is coming from, then we realize, what's happening as far as infrastructure is concerned, or, the basic pillars of 3 pillars that she spoke about. So let's look at the other,
The breakup.
breakups that are coming in. So
And
I think,
which before we move there,
yeah.
Nitin, I just want to flag the fact that this expenditure
Yeah.
chart which you just showed.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you run us through this
Yes. So,
graphic first?
so look at this. Which major items we are spending money on? Transport, which is part of infrastructure, which I was talking about. Defense. Defense has become extremely important given the volatility that is there, not just in the region but across the world. It is the second highest item for spending. Rural development remains strong, and internal security is important. So again, Home Ministry or Home Affairs gets you that. Uh, I want to go to the last item on this: urban development. Rest are all obvious, how they do it and why they do it, that we know. But if you look at the urban development, I think she emphasized this city clusters and municipalities and tier 2 and tier 3 cities to get special attention. I think it's a Niti Aayog project which has been sort of funded now, or has been proposed to be funded. And I've always believed that one of the biggest challenges India has, a non-traditional security challenge, is the rapid urbanization. I don't know, what's your take on that?
No, totally. Because look around us. Anecdotally,
Yeah.
cities are a mess.
Right.
But the challenge the union government faces here is most of them intersect with states.
Right.
So, you need states to be on board. Even say, if you have to fix Delhi, while we have what we call a triple engine government in Delhi, but the governance in this situation is also a nightmare.
Sure.
So the point that they're talking about, one, to decongest cities, because if you develop tier 2, tier 3 cities, you're taking jobs to people instead of people coming to their jobs.
Right.
So you will in that way reduce more population coming into the metros and start also regionally growing India. So this idea of developing clusters, city clusters, connecting the tier 2, tier 3 towns, and including the high-speed corridors they talked about. And before moving on, then I want to flag the fact that the spending, while we saw which direction it's going in, we'll come to the breakup later, but we do need to understand that the quality of spending has changed in this country.
Okay, explain that.
Earlier, see, the famous Rajiv Gandhi quote that I spend a rupee, some only 10 paisa reaches the eventual person, that means 90 paisa was
siphoned off or leaking.
Exactly. Now, fast forward, that because the government created a kind of economic GPS, they triangulated a beneficiary by linking their Jandan, their Aadhaar, and their mobile, what we call JAM.
Yes.
So as a result, welfare was not flowing in a giant funnel, but coming directed to you in a specific pipe, saying for Nitin, not for Anil.
Right.
Okay, I mean, if I'm not mentioned,
Sure.
I will not get it.
Correct.
So this, the saving for the government exchequer on this account is 3 lakh crore. That is 3 times the whatever you call the Manrega or the VG Ram bill.
Correct.
Annual spend on that is the amount of saving on that.
Absolutely.
Now, at the same time, you also sorted out infra bottlenecks, gridlock. There's something called Pragati. I forget the exact form of Pragati.
It's a long form. It's a long abbreviation. But
basically, the gist of it is it unlocks these bottlenecks.
Right.
And it's headed by the PM.
Correct.
And it's got 2 levels. One at the state, interstate level and intra-government, union government level.
Yeah.
Now, long story short, Navi Mumbai Airport is the best example of Pragati's power, or what I meant by good spending.
Yes.
If Pragati had not intervened, Navi Mumbai Airport would have been launched in 2049.
Right.
Today it's up and running. Can you imagine the opportunity cost lost in terms of services and the opportunity cost on the exchequer, or both private and public? So the quality of spending has changed, while the quantum of spending has also grown. So people, the more bang for the buck, as it were.
That's true. So that also brings me to the economic trajectory that India is now poised for. We spoke about the long-term thing that we are going in. And if you look at the economic trajectory, I was looking at some of the figures that, or at least the framework that the government has put in place. If you look at this, it talks about Viksit Bharat, balancing ambition with inclusion, and action over ambivalence, like you just said about the airport infrastructure, also direct beneficiaries, and reform over rhetoric. There's no rhetoric in this budget, really.
In fact, I mean, I don't know if it was directed there, but it's a tongue-in-cheek reform versus rhetoric. Because if you remember, there was a so-called dream budget which Chidambaram presented in 1997.
Yes.
You know, and I still remember the Dainik Jagran headline the next day. The budget following that, which was the dream budget collapsed within a few weeks.
Right.
And next year, Chidambaram's budget was presented and nobody could fathom. So the headline was, okay, मैं हंसूं या रोऊं.
So at least there is no.
So there was a lot of rhetoric. You would like to listen to Chidambaram because he was so eloquent and he would be so compelling and convincing in his elocution. Whereas, this.
But delivery.
Exactly. So which is why I think it's a bit tongue-in-cheek.
Could be. If we can have that graphic again, because it's got very important elements of that, the trajectory, the economic trajectory going there. Let us see this. Now, see, reform over rhetoric is one. People over populism. You just mentioned it. Actually, it's all there. So transforming the nation and then with these four quadrants there: stability, fiscal discipline, sustained growth, and moderate inflation. You just mentioned this is the dharma. So if you have this is actually not only non-rhetoric, it is also tones down expectations. Because there's no high fives, if I can call that, and you're actually talking about this. So, and
also,
they've given this.
Nitin, even inflation at less than 2%, there's a wealth effect in your salary.
There are more.
Right? You can buy more.
Correct.
Like if you were buying, say, 10 tomatoes for 100 rupees, and now prices fall to 1 rupee, you can buy 100 tomatoes.
Correct.
So it's there's a wealth effect which also comes in because of inflation.
Of course. But here there's one question that I was listening to some other people on TV during the budget presentation or just after that. What about the private capital expenditure or investment? That has been lagging behind the public expenditure or public investment. Is there something for the private sector?
See, that is a big concern. Now, unfortunately, the government can't fix it directly. What they've done two things here. And they're being third is they're very patient. The first thing they've done is they realized that the private sector is in a funk. So they decided to step up their side of the capital expenditure.
Right.
And just to explain the context, if the government's share in total capital investment spending in this country is about 30%.
Correct.
So it's about a third.
Yes.
Now that third is what is firing this economy, because the balance 70% is operating below par. So they hoped that they will trigger it because it has a multiplier impact.
Sure.
What I talked about earlier, besides saving on spending, to spend on capital expenditure is not inflationary. It creates jobs, it creates more growth.
Sure.
So it's a multiplier impact. Is it about 2 to 2.5? So which means 1 rupee is spent 2.5. So if they're spending 10 lakh crore, it has a 30 lakh crore impact. Now, that they did for the last 4 or 5 years.
Correct.
And they continue to do even this year, hoping that the private sector will
match or at least contribute something.
So from their side, in 2019, this finance minister rejigged the corporate tax rates much ahead of income tax.
Yes.
She gave, I think it's now, if you're a company which starts post her that 2019, you pay a tax of something like 20%.
Right.
Or 15%, sorry.
Okay.
Earlier you would be paying 25 to 30%. So that is a huge saving. So that was fixed. Then all that we talked about, the reforms, the process reforms, whether you have labor code, whether it is processes, decriminalizing that, what Vishwas 2. I forget the exact phrase. There's a bill which talks about ease of doing business. What does all that do? Creates a better ecosystem for you to invest. Now, the government has done all that it is required to do. The ball is now in the private sector's court. I just hope they have finally discovered their mojo, and uncertainty is what scared them. But uncertainty, like we said at the beginning, is not going to go away.
Correct.
It's a way of
the
life.
world is in an uncertain phase anyway.
In your sector, defense, thanks to Operation Sindoor, they have de-risked even defense investment in this country.
Right. Absolutely.
Because now there's a ready market.
Correct.
So everything is working for you.
It's a sweet spot, like you said. But let's look at the infrastructure. I think, that's the basis on which the private sector might want to come in. So there was a thing about how infrastructure will fire. If you look at this, strengthening the foundation of growth. and they're talking about tier 2, tier 3 cities. Let's talk a little bit more about that. How does the municipal financing happen now? Because they've given some incentive, I heard. I think for 1,000 crore bond, they will give 100 crore, I think, discount or,
No,
tax
incentive,
break,
yeah,
incentive,
incentive.
tax break. So will that work for cities
See,
and
these are,
towns?
see, I'm not sure, Nitin, because I mean, I love to hope that it works because we all live in these towns
Right.
and cities.
Yes.
But, this is like a moonshot.
Mm.
End of the day, it's the states.
Right.
And unfortunately, the third tier in India,
Mm.
it's like kind of a previous question I told someone that it's like, you're given pocket money.
Yes.
So assume your father's giving you pocket money.
Hmm.
And how long can you suddenly your dad may stop giving you pocket money? So what are you going to do? But if you were earning
Yourself, yes.
so which means you are not allowed to charge for user fee. The user fee is controlled. They interfere in your governance. So municipalities cannot issue bonds because most of them don't have a balance sheet where somebody will go and invest in that bond,
Right.
even if it is
That needs to be
underwritten.
fixed. Yeah, that needs to be fixed.
Exactly. So you need to structurally fix these things. They don't happen overnight.
Right.
And that the idea is good, but larger message, if you look at the budget and all the actions that this government has been taking, is a deliberate effort to decentralize growth and impulses. It is no longer about metros. It is, look at the Padma Awards.
Yes.
I mean, it's the best example.
Exactly.
Look at Mahendra Singh Dhoni.
That's right.
Do you think Mahendra Singh Dhoni would have happened 20 years, 30 years ago? No way. So, the hegemony of the metros and the hegemony of the elite has been broken.
Yes.
So, you are seeing a more decentralized growth.
And
I believe the next landing stage for India's next phase of growth are going to be districts more than even the states.
So, we'll look at that, but also the 7 high-speed railway corridors, or you want to call it, which is extremely important, I think, because that will mean less congestion in bigger cities. I think that should also be another alternative to civil aviation.
And also, yeah, exactly. I was just going to say what you said.
Yeah.
It will, decongest airports and give options.
That's
so,
right.
Absolutely.
So that is one. But now, if you look at, what is the, this is the urbanization thing, 7 high-speed railway corridors. They've said this is mostly, except Delhi, Varanasi, and Varanasi, Siliguri, or Varanasi, I think, Siliguri, yeah. The rest of them are in the South India. Because Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Hyderabad, Chennai, Hyderabad, because they are industrialized states really in that sense.
And also they are not like BJP ruled states.
So yeah, so there is no discrimination there or no partiality as they call it. But let's now look at, let's come to national security. Defense, as we know, is crucial, but it has always had some problem of spending. They had to return money many a times because they couldn't absorb the entire budget. But last year, this current fiscal, they actually spent more than what was allocated because of Operation Sindoor, clearly. But before coming to defense, I am also interested in the semiconductor mission 2.0, where they've given some 40,000 crore, and rare earths corridor. Now, that I think cuts across all sectors.
Oh, absolutely. And also, Nitin, the rare earths corridor in the east.
Yes.
So, again, we need to connect the dots. This about 8 years ago or 10 years ago, when the Dharmendra Pradhan was the petroleum minister, they launched the Eastern Gas Grid.
Right.
So, I don't know what's the stage of completion of that. So, so the east, which is, if you draw a line from from Kanpur down, then the west is developed and the east is underdeveloped.
Right.
Now, if I provide this kind of infrastructure and the ports that are coming up on the eastern coast, and let's not forget, the new center of the world is the east.
Yes.
So, which means China and Southeast Asia, Japan. So, the east has a great opportunity. You're giving them the infrastructure. So, green corridor, 2 birds with 1 stone. You also solve for your green minerals challenge. You also create an investment job dynamic in this neglected part. So, a very, very, very clever move.
Yeah, so this is what most people have missed this, especially stock markets, because they react to immediate emotional issues.
The word you used was perfect. instant gratification.
Instant gratification. Yeah, that's right. I mean, because I'm not a stock market investor, I can say that.
So it's a
But
social media
social
syndrome.
media thing.
The way we scroll on Instagram,
Exactly.
is the same thing.
That is how it is. But let's come to defense now. If you let's pull up the defense graphic or the kind of defense expenditure that has been looked at. Okay, 14.68% of the entire budget. In fact, it's gone up from 13%, I think, if memory serves me right. And now it's at about 7.85 lakh crores. It includes everything, of course, pension, salaries, revenue expenditure. And it's a record allocation really amongst the ministries, like we said that time. But after transport, in terms of absolute terms, yes, transport is higher, but percentage-wise, I think this is really giving something that the defense ministry wanted. And like you mentioned about what I said on Friday, that's because one interacts with the people there, and they were all hoping, because there are two big ticket items that have to be bought, if not this year, this fiscal. I mean, at least decide this fiscal and buy it in the coming fiscal. That is where it is coming. So defense is absolutely crucial.
And in fact, I'm not sure. Is it? We are still less than 5% of GDP. I haven't done the math.
Less than 2% actually.
Even now.
Yeah, 1.9% after all this, because our GDP has grown, and the absolute terms, the money has gone up quite a bit. But in absolute, I mean, in percentage terms, that is what. See, this is what I've not been able to understand. Most people again react to this very emotionally. They've been saying that why is it not 2.5%? Now, when our income, or when India's economy was growing at 5%, or whatever the rate, that time to have even 2% was not enough.
Yeah.
Today the economy is grown, and that 2%, and what the ministry officials tell me, or users tell me, is that any allocation more than this, it can't be absorbed. That's the whole issue. So, because there are tests and trials, and the process is long.
But tell me, Nitin, since this is your territory completely, but you have also done a series of shows on the shop floor.
Yes.
So you have seen the private sector. Now, when we look at defense spending, is it a wrong idea to only look at the union budget spending? Because the overall defense budget, if I include the private sector, now that they are allowed in almost every aspect of defense, isn't it a much, much larger pie than what we think? And also, isn't it de-risked after the government step up in spending?
Yes, and also, dual-use items are coming in. Companies like Tata's are into vehicles, passenger vehicles, commercial vehicles, and defense vehicles. So it's no longer, tight silos that in which you work. Now, you talked about on the shop floor series that we did. There again, in the budget, in the capital expenditure, they have last year they had earmarked, and the year before that, 75% of the capital expenditure is earmarked for domestic manufacturers, which means you are actually giving them a boost. Orders will take time to come, and they are slowly coming into the private sector. They have to also prove that they are capable of giving the kind of equipment that the armed forces want.
How much was it earlier?
Earlier there was no compulsion. I mean, there's whatever the users decided. Now it's mandatory to spend 75%. From 60%, it has now come to 75%, which is a big boost, and it's like a reservation for the domestic manufacturers.
No, and for companies, it's completely de-risked.
Correct.
If the government is giving
only
you
one customer,
order,
giving you the order. So that is how it is. But let's look at the defense graphics that we have about where they are. We have that one graphic, of course. But when I was looking at the overall figure, apart from this one, the capital expenditure, like I said, has gone up because this year India is planning to buy the Rafales for the Air Force, which is badly off in terms of fighter jet strength. And it is also looking to buy or order, at least give initial payment for submarines to be bought. Now, if you see this 5,94,000 crores does not include pension and
really?
the pension takes it later overall thing. There is also civil defense civil, as they call it. So it's a bit tricky. Defense budgets, they're not as clean or as simple to understand, really.
So that's another question I have for you. How much of it, what we see, is what we see, what we get, or what we see is not what we get?
No, some of them is some of it is camouflaged, some of it is not declared, because there are strategic programs, nuclear programs, all that doesn't come in.
So then the defense spending is much, much bigger
Yeah, much
than
more.
what it
And
is.
the multiplier effect you spoke about in the non-defense sector, I would think the multiplier effect is little higher in defense than in the civil sector, because you are not only manufacturing it, but you also got the maintenance part of it coming in later. So suppose you bought something 5 years ago, now the AMC of that will start, it will go back to the defense company, the same company which is supplied. So that circulation of money remains there. I think that's something that most people don't understand.
And you need vendors. You
Ecosystem
like
is
the
created.
Maruti Udyog created
Absolutely.
Gurgaon.
Yeah, Gurgaon,
So,
exactly. Or any other town that they have all these things.
Jamshedpur.
Absolutely. So defense, I think, has got what it wants. Now it has to deliver. It has to deliver, and it has to utilize. I have said this about to some investors some 3 weeks ago when they wanted to know what will it be. And in fact, that program was based on my talk to one of the investing companies, where I had said that smart spending is the key. It's not about how much money you get on defense, but smart spending is the key. Now, MHA, like I was saying, MHA has got also extra allocation because internal security is also important. And it's got the IB, the Intelligence Bureau, has got a big jump. We don't have that breakup here, but I was looking at the figures because the intelligence has become crucial. Now, we had a bomb blast in Delhi, and white collar, terrorism is here to stay. So you have to have better technology, more people, more investment in what they're doing, all that. So I think overall, if you look at just not defense, but security, national security. So you got semiconductor 2.0, that is also for defense. It's also a crucial part. You have the defense budget, you have the MHA budget, and you have the MHA budget, of course, includes CAPFs, the Central Armed Police Forces, the IB, the RNW, all of that comes into Coast Guard, comes into defense. So I think this is the first time I think nobody should have a complaint. Although the percentage remains below 2%, many people who are gung-ho about defense and that we are not secure enough, all that, they're saying it should be about 2.5%, it should go up. But like I said, it can't be absorbed. And therefore, it's a conservative thing, or keeping in line with the overall tone of the budget of conservatism.
Interesting. So what you're saying is that this budget also addresses the security risk to investments and growth in this country.
Most people don't understand, because now I'm seeing more and more interest in national security, in financial companies, in corporates. They want to know, because the world, like you said rightly, it's volatile, uncertain. Nobody knows how Mr. Trump is going to react, and whether Iran is going to be attacked. If Iran is attacked, then your oil supplies get disrupted. Will it happen? Not happen? Will Russia stop the war? If it stops the war, then what is the multiplying effect? If EU wants to rearm itself, that is another opportunity for Indian defense companies. 800 billion euros they're going to spend for rearming itself, because their daddy is not going to support them or protect them anymore. So there again, exports are going to be, defense exports are going to be a major boost for Indian defense sector.
It's fascinating, Nitin. Earlier, India was a relatively closed economy. Now we are opening up in a big way. The FTAs, by the way, are all with developed countries.
Right.
So one, it exhibits enormous self-confidence of a country. Second, I think India has crossed a Rubicon. Earlier, if you recall, we used to approach all multilateral negotiations with a zero-sum game.
Yes.
So, the headline was, I'm sure you also covered these events, India walks out. India checkmate.
WTO.
It was all, exactly. So, it was now, if you see, there is always a give and take, and there are solutions that India is now, actually, a better way to put it is, it's part of the solution and not the problem.
Absolutely. So we have a question from one of our viewers, regular viewers. I can recognize the name, Rohan Bade, who's based in Dubai. He says, defense modernization has increased 22%. What would be your priorities to address the ground for the Army, Navy, and the Air Force? I just mentioned it.
All yours.
Yes, I know. But I said, one of the things is that India has to invest not only in big platforms like the aircraft, manned aircraft, but a lot of UAVs and unmanned space. Both underwater domain has to be protected. You have also UAVs in the skies and counter UAVs. Now that's the way forward. It's going. And I think Rohan is also saying, what's the ideal number in percentage GDP? I think I just answered. He's
Infinite.
come in late. It's infinite. I mean, you can go on and say,
Yeah.
see, Germany is saying we'll, not Germany, I was in a small country like Estonia. It said we are going to allocate by 2028 5% of our GDP for defense, because they had no defense so far.
Yes.
You know, their standing army is 5,000, which is like, you know, one city police also will have more numbers in India than Estonia armed forces. So I think there is no comparison. I mean, India is one of the top spenders on defense.
I believe the fourth or fifth largest.
Fourth largest. Also importers it used to be. I think we are slowly shedding that tag of being the largest importer of defense equipment, because we got
I remember you did a show about the exports. How
Yeah.
there's an
So
enormous
export,
jump in
yeah, there
India's
is,
defense exports.
but you know, they are now aiming for by 2030 50,000 crores worth of exports, because many countries want reliable equipment at a lower cost, because Europeans and Americans charge a bomb to these African and Latin American and other underdeveloped countries. So India has a great opportunity there. But overall, I think if that was the only, I think, question from one of our viewers, regular viewers and a supporter, I must say, put that on record. But I think let's sum it up. So if I sum it up correctly, or if I understood correctly, this is a base or a launch pad that the finance minister has now created. Now it's for multiple sectors, including private and public sector, plus some external factors will come into all this. And so what is your final take on this?
I would sum up with the famous John F. Kennedy quote, that it's not what the country does for you, it is what you do for the country.
Okay.
So all the stakeholders, including the new stakeholders who have, came out of poverty or have been banked, everybody has to do their little bit. And I frankly believe that the ecosystem that exists in India today, if it had existed when I launched myself 40 years ago, or you did, we would be in a different spot today.
Absolutely.
So India is in a sweet spot. It's what they call a Goldilocks moment. It won't last forever.
Right.
It is what you do now that will, decide what will happen in the next 10 or 20 years. But this is the launch pad.
True. I think on that note, we need to end this program. We've run out of time. And of course, this is once a year program that we do on budget. This is not our core expertise or core competence, but it is important to understand where the country is going as far as fiscal framework is concerned, or what prudence everyone needs to observe all the segments of the economy. And I think that's what we try to sort of unpack from this budget. Let us see how the stock markets react on Monday. But that's the least of our worries. We have to look at other stuff. For the time being, that's all I have. Goodbye.